Welcome to Teach Simple Podcast, where we focus on providing simple solutions in the classroom. Teach Simple, a podcast that believes simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. We're dropping gems, family. My brother Calvin Nellum is keeping it simple for the culture. Education, politics, science, physics, he's talking about it all. Just keep it simple for our brother, man. Teach Simple Podcast. Enjoy, family.
Welcome to the Teach Simple Podcast. We focus on providing simple solutions in the classroom. I got my favorite teachers in Detroit, my family. What's up? How y'all doing today? What's good?
What's up, y'all?
Ain't nothing much. Good to have y'all. I got my sister, Alex Buwalda. Alex Buwalda is a chemistry teacher. She's one of the best chemistry teachers in Michigan. If you know anything about stoichiometry, balancing equations, gas laws, she can tell it to you in a joke at the same time. We have an amazing conversation with her. What's up, Alex? How you doing?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me, Mr. Nellum.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I got my brother, Ricky. I've known Ricky since I've been, in Detroit pretty much. Ricky is a history teacher. He is a college prep teacher. He is a college student role model. Like, you model students to be these amazing independent learners, right? You are what's the best word? You practice what you preach, man. I mean, you taught me spades, you know what I'm saying? Like, you are someone who is just like authentically himself. And, I just really appreciate you and your hard work and effort. And then I got my brother, Evan. Like I told you, everywhere I go, Evan is always with me on the weekend. Evan is the brother who knows many languages, but he knows that one language is going to make sure that you can connect with him. He is a Spanish teacher, one of the probably best Spanish teachers in the city of Detroit as well, coming through with the Enterprise hoodie, chilling. And I just appreciate y'all. What's up? How y'all doing? What's up, Alex? How you doing? Ricky, what's up? How y'all feeling? Last day of school pretty much, I think, right? Y'all finishing up. What's up? What's going on?
Yeah, packed up the classroom this morning. I found some papers in there from years ago because it's been so long since I feel like I've been back in the classroom. So it was, it was good.
It felt like stepping into a time capsule today, going into that room, seeing like there was a baby name list from when I was pregnant and all the names that everyone wanted to name my baby. And now my baby's like almost a year and a half. So it was definitely a weird feeling being in the building, but also really exciting thinking about potentially being back there full time in the fall.
Yeah, man, we need it. We need to be back in there, and our kids need it. It's bad. I packed up my classroom today too. I put a couple papers off of this desk we're at right here off to the side. I think I put something in a manila folder. That was pretty much the extent of it with this virtual life.
Absolutely. And your kids are definitely appreciative. One thing I've heard is that the kids would never forget their COVID teacher. And I know they would never forget you all. So again, snap up for you all. You all are doing the work. So yeah, let's jump into it. So we're here today because you all are family, you all are educators, and we are in this new space where racism and anti-racism is in our film, right? It's in our lens, right? It's in our education. Just currently in Florida, they banned critical race theory when it's not even in the curriculum, right? Because they recognize that, critical race theory, it makes you critically think, right? And if you can critically think, you can ask questions, and some people may not want those questions asked, right? But you all are more than just critical thinkers. You all are relationship builders. You all build students. You all, I feel like no matter the race or the color, you believe any kid can learn. And I really, really appreciate that. And I wanted to have you all to come on today to talk about, Savior complex, the White Saviour complex, because in the field that we do, it's so hard. It is so hard, and there's so many things that aren't, there, and we have to overcompensate, right? And sometimes overcompensating can kind of hurt ourselves, right? Because we don't recognize that, there's this fight we may not be able to do by ourselves, right? We may need a different lens. We may need different tools. And so just kind of let's talk about it. So I want to read this excerpt from this organization called the White Saviour organization. And I just want to kind of read an excerpt from this. She's a white lady, and she's kind of just talking about how the White Saviour complex is adapted in the traveling international field, or when you're traveling. So she says, This group out organization is called the White Saviour Complex. The self-serving, she says, it's the self-serving assumption amongst white people from developed nations that they should be saving poor people in Africa. The White Saviour Complex in practice looks like this. Foreign volunteers come during the work. They work with local people, local leadership, volunteerists, exploiting local people by treating them as entertainment and taking pictures of them in the day and night. International adoptions through illegitimate means. So that's like adopting someone of a different race, right? The general idea that white foreigners should be adopting children in Africa as a means of saving them, right? Voluntaristic exploiting the lives, stories, faces, and the culture of African people through social media, right? We get the idea, right? But we feel like we need to be superhero because we want to help. But where does that become harmful, Evan? You know, what have you ever had a white savior, complex at all? And where did that come from?
Yeah, I mean, so I think, and I was thinking about this, and I will say that I don't think that there was ever a point where I said explicitly in my head, I want to go teach, I want to be a teacher because I want to save these poor brown and black kids. I don't think that I ever had that exact thought process. But like a lot of what you're talking about, and these are extreme examples in a way in comparison to the educational context, but it's all based on like that idea of like what is good and what is success, and that standardized idea of like white European perfection of like that being the standard we're shooting for. So I certainly in that way I think am heavily embedded in that. I mean, all of our educations are in that system of striving to succeed on the SAT, striving to meet these models. We're all built in the same system that had like, what are they called? The Carlisle Indian schools, where they were trying to civilize Native Americans, because they hated them, but because white saviors were saying the way to help these people is to make them more like white European people. So I'm certainly in that ecosystem, and I was raised in that ecosystem and built in that ecosystem and educated in that ecosystem. So for that reason, I don't think there's any way I could say that I'm exempt from this white savior complex, because a lot of the systems that we all take for granted are built upon that foundation, right? And that's why like a huge thing for me is just like interrogating and breaking my own existing paradigms, no matter how like natural they may seem when it comes to the things we do in education. Something that's a longer conversation for another day maybe, but like the short answer is yes, it's in the air, it's in the water we drink, in the system. Like, can't avoid it as a white educator of students of another race, And
then before I get to Alex, you say the word like assimilationist. As a black man, I feel like I have a black savior complex as well. And even if I do serve the same demographic as me, we can be culturally different, right? We can have different wants and needs, right? And so just because, I see them as my brothers, my wants may be different. So I got to make sure that I'm not making preconceived notions. But yeah, Alex, could you add anything to that?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think coming into education through there's definitely some layers to that organization that definitely I think emphasize, the white savior complex. And I think there are a lot of people that, participate in it. And when you do, you get a reaction from people around you, oh, wow, that's so great. That's so noble of you to do that work. And like the more that years have gone on, like the more it started to kind of irritate me. I do get it a lot, when I'm just like at the dentist and they ask me where I teach and I say, I teach at a charter school in Detroit. It's just assumed by that person that I teach all Black kids, which I do, but it's kind of, laced with this like, oh, wow, that's so big of you. That's so noble of you. And I just kind of started to be a little bit like, but why? Like, why? Like I think it's just as noble to be teaching children anywhere than it is to be teaching Black children in Detroit. So I definitely think it's obviously part of the culture, right? You wouldn't get that reaction if that wasn't you know, a bias or an opinion or a feeling that people have been grown up to kind of experience and feel. So I definitely think it's there. I definitely think it's a real thing. And
yeah, absolutely. And, you know, like you said, like it shouldn't matter, right? Where you teach, but it seems like a lot of sympathy versus empathy, right? Oh, you know, wow. But I'm not even gonna put myself in that position so I can really feel how you're feeling, right? Go ahead, Ricky.
Yeah, I mean, just to highlight and kind of go off what Evan and Alex have already said, I think so much of this is around like that deficit mindset, right? And so thinking that, oh, like I need to go teach in a underserved area, or I need to, even like you said, right? Like we as teachers might think like this is what our students need, but instead of approaching it from that asset based of like what do my students have, like what can I uplift and affirm in my students. And I think that for me has been a big part of my journey, because I do have like that direct experience with kind of like those international trips that you kind of mentioned with. So like I used to, when I was in college, I traveled to Haiti twice, and I used to talk about like my experience in Haiti all the time with people. And now as I've gotten like farther in this journey, like I almost never bring it up, because for me, like when I went there, it was a part of like, I went to a Catholic university. It was a part of this mission service learning that they had. And even when I went on those trips, the thing I took away most was, yeah, me and my group went there with this mindset of we have something to offer them, and we are going to help in some way. And I very much left saying that I got a lot more from them, and they showed me a lot more than I ever brought to them. And the same thing has happened in my classroom over the past 8 years. So much of what has been successful in my classroom has come directly from my students bringing it to my class, right? Like the content, the things that I bring are minuscule compared to the impact that when my students engage, or when I ask my students for their perspective or what they want to see. Those are the moments in which like I think true like learning happens in our classrooms. And so shifting my mindset from like, okay, what do I have to offer these kids versus what do they already have as human beings that I can just like be there to facilitate and help bring out and push them.
Ricky Harzula coming through with the icing on the cake, man. Thank you. I see it. A reflective educators, right? And you can feel the love in their words, right? And no matter the race, you can tell that they care about kids, and you can tell that they care about education, right? Even I feel like all educators, no matter, you know, whatever race you are, you should believe I could teach anybody, right? And no matter the level, like you should, like I could teach anybody, right? You know, and we can't come from it at a deficit mindset. So let me continue reading. So she said, so this is a young lady. So she said, as a white woman with the range of experiences in international development, I have too operated under white savior assumption and have made mistakes in countries I've lived and worked in. I've captured what I thought were cool cultural photos of people in their daily lives without permission. I have grown impatient with the work pace of certain cultures eternally, and wrongly assuming that the U.S. work ethics is much more effective or efficient. I have oversimplified people and a culture by portraying the poor I have oversimplified people and culture by portraying the poor but happy narrative. I have over exalted customs and traits of other cultures in the ways that it exoticized them. In times I am not in the mood for confrontation, I still shrug off comments, remarks, and perspectives that have white saviors undertones. And I love that she's owning it, right? Because when you can own it, which I feel like I have done, which I feel like you all have done, which I feel like a lot of systems, when you're talking about critical race theory, you have to check your own bias, right? We all have bias. And so I'm curious to know, like, you know, what was that process like from going to a not racist teacher to being an anti-racist teacher, where you have to put it.
You said it, like, I think in this really simple sense, it's a lot of work. And that's, I think, the biggest divide between the two is there's just like a lot of actual like academic application work in terms of just like learning these skills, because again they don't come natural. Like when you're trying to teach in a way that disassembles the system we live in, the skills are not easy, and they don't just come out of desire. So I think going from a place of like desire to patient application of like work to get there is like the place that I'm at. Like anything else, you can't expect 2, 3, 5 years of that is going to get you to a place of mastery. So it's a real lot of work, and it's desiring it is the really easy part that most people, all the people who posted black squares at the beginning of the protests last year, have the desire to be better people, to do things in an anti-racist fashion. But that work is real. Like it's a real grind. So, and I think we're all in different places in that journey, for sure.
I think like what Evan says about desire is like a really powerful thing. I think all of us have been on a journey for our entire teaching careers. We have been aware of our cultural identity. We have engaged in DEI work, but it hasn't been to this level since like the past year and a half. And I think I'm very grateful to work within an organization, within a school that is being supportive of making moves like in that direction. Because I think in the past, I've definitely had feelings of like, I don't know if I believe of college for all. Like, I think college for all is actually a little bit of a white savior complex, right? Like higher education in this specific way, and that being the earmark of success in our culture, that is a white supremacist ideology. There are other ways to be successful without a college degree. So I think like there were definitely years where I felt uncomfortable with that. But as a classroom teacher, how do I feel like I can challenge that? I can have those individual conversations with my advisees and tell them, you don't necessarily need to go to a four-year college, but when you're working in a system that doesn't support that, it can be really challenging. So I think working at a school now where we put more emphasis on, what is your post-secondary path, right? Maybe it is that you're going to be a certified nurse assistant first, and then you're going to go back later and become a registered nurse. Like helping them really think through these pathways that are more accessible, that are more realistic for where they are in their journeys and their educations at that moment in time, I think is just so refreshing, because I think it helps you move that desire into action. And I think that just speaks to the fact though that like until systems change at so many different levels, we might not see that progress that we also desperately want to see. But I think seeing it within within the school that I work in this year, that we can make steps forward if everybody is passionate and dedicated to doing the work. It makes me believe in like the potential that one day it can go more system level, more state, like county level, so that we can get more progress in more schools.
Yeah, the two things I think about a lot when I think about my own journey and talking with a lot of other white people who have been on different points of this journey, the two things that often make it the most difficult are that it requires a lot of unlearning and it's aspirational, right? So when we say unlearning, like Evan talked about, right, just white supremacy culture is all around us, whether we want it to be or not. And so and like Alex just said, right, this idea of like going to college. So even if I as an individual might not believe that all my students need to go to college, there is still a societal expectation that college is what me as a teacher, as an educator, I should be pushing kids towards, right? And so you're constantly fighting within that. And it takes a lot of work to like unlearn that, right? And I don't know that everyone is willing or intentional about doing the work of unlearning, because we're so used to just learning. And once we learn something, we're like, okay, I know how the world operates. Like, let me just keep it moving. And the second thing is that it's aspirational. And I think that this is what often holds a lot of people back to even like start the journey, is you never become fully anti-racist, right? Because to be anti-racist, it's just it's in that moment, are you perpetuating racist ideas or are you perpetuating anti-racist ideas? So in the span of 10 minutes, I can be all over that spectrum. Right. And because you are constantly aspiring to be anti-racist, there's no like ending to that journey. And I think for a lot of people, they feel, well, if there's no end point, if I'm never really going to get there, then like, why do all this work and why continue down that path if there's no end point? And it makes it a lot easier for people to then settle for the I'm not racist, right? Because you can say, well, I don't use racial slurs, or I'm not like harming a person of another race, so like I'm not racist. But actually, by you just choosing to not do anything, to not do the work, you're choosing to allow all of that still exists around us to be there, and that is racist, right? And so those two things always stick out to me when I talk to people about why it's really difficult to start.
I'm so happy that you all came on the podcast, because I have a really knack for picking really great guests, because I always know that you all are going to come through with the correctness. Thank you so much. Hearing you, I mean, you all are saying a lot of great things, you know, Evan, you know, just the logic of it, right? I appreciate the framework. Alex, when you was talking about like college not being, I think of my cousin. I went back to Baton Rouge one time, and I come with my master's degree and my bachelor's degree, and my cousins are there. And I'm talking to my cousin Shalita. I'm like, they need to go to college, get a 4-year degree, right? And she looks at me with the most OG response. She's like, but that might not be for them, Calvin. You know? And that hurt me so much, because I'm thinking that I'm about to save my cousins, right? I haven't seen them, you know, since Katrina. I got all this education, you understand what I mean? I want to come with all this savior, and it backfired completely. Backfired completely, you know? That's what I mean. And then Ricky, you know, I think of Nicole Hannah-Jones, right? If you don't know who Nicole Hannah-Jones, she is the author of a 1619 Project, which pretty much makes the argument that, you know, well, it talks about the ending of slavery, but also makes the argument that African slaves of diaspora, we are the most American, right? Because we have fought for that Constitution to be upheld due to all the civil rights issues, and it makes the case for reparations as well. And she literally got denied tenure position at UNC Chapel Hill because of political pressure of her work, because it's being categorized as critical race theory. And I'm like, you know, if I can just say I'm not racist and I don't have to deal with all the backlash, it's probably a lot more comfortable. But if I'm going to speak out and I'm going to be anti-racist, I'm not going to have that many friends. I'm actually going to have to lose some friends as well, you know? Yeah. Thank you all so much. Yeah, anything you want to add to that before I get to the last question? Anybody?
To twist that, Cal, like in our roles as educators, I think just remembering like we are often those holders of powers in those small classrooms, like there's levels to it. And so even just modeling like when we are challenged, I think is a huge part of that too. Ricky talked about like that asset-minded teaching and like understanding that students can be leaders and giving them the opportunity and the voice to lead. So like, it's kind of this iterative process where I'm not comfortable, even if I feel like, oh, college for all is bad. I would have never said that in my first couple of years teaching, because I'm like, who am I? I just started teaching. Like, who am I to challenge the system? I don't know anything. And in the same way, until our students are empowered by being told by their teachers, who were empowered by their administrators, who were empowered by experience, and on and on and on.
Right.
Like, so as an educator, I feel like oftentimes it kind of we have to say like,
break it,
fuck the system.
Right.
It starts with us, and like we can try to push in both directions. Because if we can make it easier for our students, they are the literal future of the world. So they're coming up into those positions. And like, that's where that aspirational long-term mindset can be like a little bit more manageable. As a teacher, is like pushing on the levers that we have access to, that biggest lever being what happens in the 4 walls of our classroom 5 days a week, the 4 walls of my Zoom screen 2 days a week.
Nah, absolutely. And I feel like it all starts with like high expectations. You got to have a family. I think of Buwalda's advisory, you know, your all your advisories, the connections you all make with your scholars is just invaluable. And, they would never forget you all. They're definitely going to, I feel like they say, you're never going to forget you're going to forget what the teacher teaches you, but you're not going to forget how they made you feel. I think with you all, they're going to definitely remember what you taught them, because y'all are really good teachers at your subject as well. And they're going to remember how you made them feel, because you all definitely come from love. What'd you say?
For better or worse, they can remember how I made them feel.
Absolutely. Cool. So we're going to get into the last question. And anybody, you all have been amazing. I'm really, really thank you all for blessing the podcast. And then we can end on maybe just like some quick solutions that you think you want people to get from the podcast, just whatever. It could be a teacher, it could be a parent listening, or it could be a student listening as well. So the last question is, why do you teach? And why is it important to achieve equity in education, specifically Detroit?
I guess I can start. I've been starting. I mean, I teach fundamentally because I think it's fun as shit. Like I just have a really good time. And I think I would tandem that with it's fun, and also like education in general is a genuinely really important aspect of life to me. Right. I don't think the education that happens in the walls of a classroom is end all be all. I know it's not the only education that one undergoes in their life by any means, but I think it is an incredibly, and I don't think many people would disagree with this, but it is a fundamental belief of mine that that's like a deeply formulating, impactful time and structure in one's life. And so I think it's a privilege to be able to be a part of that for students. And it demands my excellence, which I love as like a competitive person. I love to be able to go to work every day. And it can be hard sometimes, but to go to work every day and say like, my being good at my job today has very high stakes for like real impact on people's lives. I think that's an incredibly rewarding thing to have as a teacher. And I think it's something that all teachers carry with them. But also, it's just fun. Like, we have a good time. Every day is a little bit different. It's a great time. And why educational equity is important, specifically in Detroit, I think it's just Detroit is a manifestation of the wrongs of America. Everything that's been done wrong to Americans has been done wrong to Detroit. But it's an incredibly beautiful and resilient city. And it's one that, like, specifically in the education space, has just been done so dirty, but still is able to churn out leaders of the world through the education system. Like, you meet people that are products of DPS, and they got put through underfunded, like undertaught, horrible schools, and are still always like these intelligent, compassionate, hardworking people in my experience. So it's a system that against odds has done really well, but it needs to not be against the odds at some point. Like, let's even the odds and then see what Detroit can really do then. So I think that's a cool part of the journey too.
When you find what you're passionate about, you'll never have to work another day in your life, so it just doesn't even feel like a job to me. Like, it feels like almost like a biological imperative. Like, it's just part of like my DNA. I have to like teach, and it makes me feel like a complete person when I do. I think one of the biggest shocks of my entire life is I really thought that I was going to be a stay-at-home mom after I had my son 3.5 years ago. And when I went back to the classroom, I realized that like a piece of my identity was missing, like when I was on maternity leave, and it didn't feel like I was like my true self unless I was like also teaching. I think, let's see, like, why else do I teach? I mean, it's an amazing lifelong journey of being a learner. Like, I think that's also why I love it, because I've always loved being a student, and I've always loved being a learner. So being able to share that with students, I think also in particular working with teenagers, like, it's such a critical part of your development. They're making really big decisions that can have lifelong impacts on the rest of their lives, and being able to be a sounding board for them when they really, really need it, I think is just very, very rewarding. And I think in terms of educational equity, like I still just really believe that education is, you know, the key to unlocking your success and potential as a human. I think it has the ability, just school in general, to, you know, support kids that are going, like I just said earlier, like just going through really difficult times, and just being able to have said, like, I've lived these some difficult things myself, and like, let's work through those problems together and build, you know. And that's like what you said earlier, that the relationship piece is huge. Like, I'm a people person, and I think that's why I do thrive in education, because I love making those relationships every single year. I absolutely love it. And that's what's been difficult about COVID, because I do crave those relationships, and not seeing those faces and not being able to give those hugs or fist bumps or have those little like hallway interactions was really, really challenging. And I think if I would give advice to anybody as an educator who's coming in, you know, just focus on that. If you focus on relationship building, everything else will fall into place. Your management will fall into place. Planning will be easier because you're excited to teach the kids that are in front of you. Like, you want to teach that lesson because you want to see them thrive and excel. And like Evan said, I'm competitive too. So when I have a challenging learning objective, like, I go into that room, it is like a competition. Like, I am challenging myself so that every single kid can learn that. And when they don't, I feel like I lost. And like, that's what keeps me going year after year after year, is like, I just want so badly for like one day every single kid in my AP class to like get a passing score. Like, that it would just be like magnificent. And yeah, it just continues to be a challenge. And I absolutely love that part of it too.
And you will do that. You will have that AP class.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, she's got it next year for sure. Y'all got me hyped up to like be ready to like go back to my classroom like tomorrow. Like, let's just get it going now, because like I think
enjoy your summer break. Chill out.
But that's what I think, that's what makes teaching so special for the four of us, is that like we draw so much energy, not only from our students but from each other. And like Evan and Alex said, like that passion just drives, I think, a lot of the work we do and why we do it. Calvin, when you mentioned like this idea of like remembering how teachers make you feel, I think about like, I knew I wanted to be a teacher in middle school because of how like learning felt to me, and because how my teachers made me feel. Wow. But also, I think just like teaching and learning is such a human experience, right? Everyone has teachers in their lives, whether they are in a school classroom or just in life. You learn from people. And I think because it's a shared human experience, and like Alex said, like we work with human beings, and I think that humanizes so much of what we do. I literally can't even imagine what it would be to work in like a cubicle in like an office. Like I don't know that I could operate that way. And like teaching allows me to have those human interactions, to make sure that not only I'm learning, but other people are learning around me, right? Just being a part of that experience. And like we nerd out, like we geek out for our stuff. Like when I walk into Calvin's room and they're rapping like measurements, or like when I'm in Evan's room and they're reading a Spanish novel, like kids who have never seen a Spanish word in their life, or Alex has them memorizing the periodic table, whatever it is. Like when I teach, because I noticed this also when I like stopped teaching like history classes for a little bit, and then I started teaching AP again. Like just like when I got in front of the room and I started talking about stuff, and you could tell that it just like lights up something inside of you. And it's what we look for in our kids all the time, right? Like what lights them up. And I think teaching is what does that for us. And so that's what like drives us to, no matter how difficult we might like bitch and moan about like this part of this and that, but like at the end of the day, like I would never do anything else. Like you could not pay me any sum of money to do something else, because this work just means so much. And it makes me think so much about like why equity is so important in education specifically, because so much of the system is built by non-educators. So much of what we deal with and what our kids deal with is determined by outsiders. And when we think about like real change, right? Change needs to come from the ground up. And I only think, like Evan and Alex said, I think through education and reimagining what education is in this country is the way to build equity, because you need to tear down the system. You need to have the people who can do that and who feel like they can critically think, yeah, Cal, to change that system, right? And so I think that's the work that we're doing in education right now is reimagining it, and again letting our kids be the guiding for that, right? So they're guiding me on how I can support them to change the system, because I know the system's messed up and I know that I'm in the system, so we got to figure a way out of it. And then the last thing I'll say is just even like, why did I even move to Detroit? I think was so much about the people and the city, right? So to Evan's point, like historically what education has meant to this city is like the people of Detroit, like they deserve this shit. Like this is what they deserve without a doubt. And so whatever part I need to play in that, I'm willing to do it. But I also know that like I could have gone a lot of places around this country to teach, but it was the people of Detroit. You could tell immediately how passionate people like Detroiters are about Detroit, right? Like if you know someone from Detroit, you know they're from Detroit. And that energy that just this city holds with the people who are here is really what's going to like change the world. Like Evan said, I truly believe that our kids have that energy and they're going to take it far beyond this city.
What about you, Cal? You got to answer the question, my man.
Yeah, I mean, I teach because my mama taught, because, she wanted to provide equal opportunity for her people. And I look at Detroit as New Orleans, it's my people, and I want to give them what they got in Ferndale, Livernois, Troy. I want to give them what they have, because they deserve it. And that's the equity, right? I feel like I'm a great educator. I think you all are amazing educators, and that's not just me saying it because I've seen you do it, right? And our kids deserve the best educators, and that's just it.
Hey, bro, this is kind of off track, but who reps their city harder, people from New Orleans or people from Detroit?
Oh,
people from New Jersey. People from New Jersey, Evan. That's the answer.
Those are like the
I know, right? You got so many people from so many different places.
I feel like New Orleans and Detroit, in my experience, they rep their. You can't meet someone from either of those cities for longer than 1.5 seconds without knowing where they're from.
Hey, it's the identity, man, and that's why I think you got to teach identity in school, right? So you can be proud of where you come from, and have pride in that. And carry it wherever you go, man. I'm 504 till I die, man. So I'm excited. But yeah, man, I appreciate you all coming on the T Simple podcast. We focus on providing simple solutions in the classroom. Real quickly, where can we find you all and where you all got coming up? What's your social media tag? What you got coming up? Alex, ladies go first, and then we can go with Ricky, then Evan.
Yes, you can find me on Instagram is mostly where I'm active at Alexandra Buwalda. I am a mom of 2 little kids as well as a science teacher, so you'll see lots of stuff on my story about how to kind of just do fun little science things at home with your kids. So if you are interested in getting ideas for that, you can definitely follow me. And then during the school year, you'll see a lot of science and chemistry jokes, as Mr. Nolan said. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah, you all can find me also on Instagram at hardworkzula, ZULA _313. Gotta rep the Detroit, always in my classroom.
After New Jersey.
After New Jersey, always I'm always a Jersey boy, but definitely gotta rep that. And you'll find a lot of me just like talking about this work. I coach, I do a lot of things at the school just outside of my classroom, and so that's highlighted there. I'm a huge Jeopardy geek, so I have a Jeopardy calendar I post every day. And then my dog, so I'm a single bachelor living with my dog right now through pandemic life, so me and my dog are just chilling. So yeah, gonna enjoy this summer and then coming back excited to do this work with you all.
hardworkzula _ 313. Ladies, single bachelor, hardworkzula _ 313.
You know it, Ev. You know it. There you go.
I was going to put a graphic up right now. It goes right there.
You got me, Calvin. It's all good. It's all good, Calvin.
Man, I'm not all that active, to be perfectly honest with you, on Instagram, but I'm ESAW802.
Yeah.
We've got the very dormant, but Nellen was on there once time. It's in hibernation, but our podcast, Small Brains, Big Picks, is where it's at. So when we revive that, I'm sure the Teach Simple podcast will let you know, and we'll get a little collaboration happening. And yeah, you find me in room 206 at my school. Come find my classroom.
And check out the podcast I did with Evan, 4 Misconceptions of Culturally Responsive Teaching.
Good one.
That's one of my popular episodes. I always recommend that one. I actually recommended that during a conference. I had a bunch of people check out that podcast. So you definitely came through and blessed the podcast. But thank you all so much. Thank you all so much for just being yourselves. Thank you all for being amazing teachers. Our kids need you. We need you. Please remember that. Get your rest. This year has been 2 years wrapped in one. Woo! Man, please get y'all rest. Please get y'all rest. And I'm super excited to work with y'all, fam. I started off calling y'all fam. I'm ending calling y'all fam. I got a number of love for y'all. Thank y'all so much for blessing the podcast. Thank you so much.
Love you, Calvin.
Love you, Cal.